And away we go. Here we are on a beautiful Tuesday. Sean Barnard with you. Of course, all things NBA playoffs front and center right here on a brand new edition of Picks and Roll. Sean and Sam went live yesterday. Great job setting the table for all things what we saw last night. And boy, did we see a lot on the 21st of April in the NBA playoffs in those two games. Great games, both of them. Both road teams winning on the road, both teams trailing 1-0 in those series. So therefore, both teams now evening up in those series, one games apiece. Sean Barnard, let's not bury the lead. Let's jump right into it. I texted you and Sam last night because front and center the conversation has been about the New York Knicks, and we understand why. I think there has been times that you have been a little over the top, but at the same time, we're talking about teams that are playing for something. We're talking about teams that could potentially win a championship, but teams that could compete and make things interesting. And you never bought in. You never saw the vision I was trying to pitch as far as the Knicks was concerned. Sam was even more positive as far as the Knicks were concerned because he didn't even want to go down the path of comparing them to the Sixers from years ago, from a few seasons ago, when the Sixers had a lot of good things going in their favor, finishing in the overall 1 seed, which, oh, by the way, the Knicks did not. But still, like, the Knicks won a lot of games this year in the regular season. They finished 3rd overall in the Eastern Conference. They went out and made multiple trades this offseason. They are all in. They have a great player in Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart. We could go down the list. Really good team. But, man, they are in trouble against the Detroit Pistons. So I tip my cap to you on that one, sir.
Yeah, and by the way, the Knicks are a good basketball team. I'm not dodging that directly there, but when we have the conversation of can this team actually compete for a championship, the answer has been no, that there has not been a day where that's changed. And speaking of those names that they went all in on, let's talk about them last night. Karl-Anthony Towns did not score in the second half, attempted 1 field goal attempt, did not shoot the ball in the fourth quarter. Mikal Bridges had not 1, but 2 clean 3-point attempts to knock down, change that game, and give your team a chance to win. He came up short there. The guys that they went all in on are not the caliber of players or the missing pieces for what that team needed in the way that they should have gone all in. I've been pretty vocal about my belief that they cashed in the chips to be a role player super team, and that is how I view them. When you look at this Pistons team, they know exactly who they are. They're going to be hard-nosed. They're going to be physical. They're going to play hard. Cade Cunningham is going to be a legitimate all-NBA guard, a guy that when he plays his best is the best player in this series. I do think the Knicks should be worried after last night. I took a lot of heat for the Karl-Anthony Towns unplayable statement. A guy who doesn't score in the second half and play pretty mediocre defense in the second half of that game, that fits the unplayable category to me.
But somebody has to fill in those spots, right? Like,
Sure.
Cat played 34 minutes last night, and I could see the frustration from Tibbs. That's understood, but he's flawed. He's flawed specifically on the defensive side. You know, last night I saw Tobias Harris D him up in the lane. I was just like, what? What is going on?
Been pretty much like, I mean, Cat still gets his perimeter stuff that, and for to be fair to him, like some of this absolutely has to fall on Phipps. Like you have to do a better job creating looks for him. When you have a guy that is that talent and that's his skill set, it's on you as a coach to put that together, create opportunities for him. And Phipps certainly failed in that category. Now, if you're Cat, you still got to have a little bit of get me the ball, like assert yourself, that's kind of, you know, this is the same Karl-Anthony Towns problem that we've talked about his entire career. It's not really a talent thing with him, but there is, whether it's an attitude or a personality, he hasn't been able to kind of take that next step into the true stars the way his talent should. And I think we're seeing this with the bright lights on.
Right now, DraftKings Sportsbook showing the Pistons plus 200. Of course, as I said, series tied 1 game apiece heading to Detroit. You can still get the Pistons at plus 200. Is that a good play in your mind?
I'm surprised it moved that much. Mind you, it opened plus 310 for Pistons to win the series. It was up to I think it was plus 650 yesterday, if I'm not mistaken there. So some pretty significant movement. Vegas is seeing it the exact same way we are as far as why this next team should be worried.
Yeah, look, game 1, if it wasn't for campaign, they're not winning that game.
Yeah, if it wasn't for a fourth quarter meltdown, we are very likely talking about a 2-0 Pistons lead right now. That they were up 8 points heading into that fourth quarter, and that was their wake up call. That's the doubt. That's the legitimate doubt, like a fair concern about this Pistons team. That's that organization's first playoff win in like 15 years at this point. That this team's first time being back in the playoff in 6 seasons since 2018-19 at this point. So it is a new experience rising to that playoff atmosphere. They did get swallowed up in that fourth quarter with Madison Square Garden, with the crowd piling on, being outscored by 19 points in the period there. That was their wake-up call, but we see how they responded, and I was really impressed with them last night.
Yeah, really impressed. I could not agree with you more. 194 was your final score. 6.5 points spread. The Knicks were favored in that, so we know what took place there. 221.5 was our total heading into that game. So, of course, only one team living up to a little bit of the hype there yesterday as far as the scoring is concerned. Pistons, though, ended up with 100. Story for the Pistons. I do want to give Cade Cunningham his flowers here, man, because he didn't have a good first game, so he bounced back in the second game, put the team on his shoulders. He attacked. He pulled down boards. He's a big body. You know, I was really impressed with Cade Cunningham and his play in that second game, specifically after what took place in game one.
Yeah, I thought he did a really nice job early on in that game, getting out in transition, attacking before the Knicks defense got set. And I thought that set the tone for this Pistons team. He pretty much was the leading scorer from start to finish, that he exploded for double-digit points really early in that game. And by the way, like, while we have he didn't play well in the first game, he certainly didn't in the first half. He ultimately finished that game with 21 points, 12 assists, and 6 rebounds. And I thought in the second half that he did find some stuff there. Obviously, that carried into game two, and we saw it. I just love, like, you mentioned the physicality. He is like a big body when he gets downhill, man. He loves using that shoulder to create separation, and he's big enough to do it. Like, that is a guy that I think we still have not been fully aware of when we have this hierarchy talk around the NBA of where he can climb to. That's a guy that can be a face of the franchise, all NBA guy for a decade to come. And I think we will have those conversations about Cade Cunningham when the time does come.
Schroeder, big time deal off the bench.
Yeah.
He's a stud. Like, he is not shy away from the moment. He lets it rip. He talks trash. Great handles. And man, how old is he? 31. All right. I feel like he's been around the league a little bit longer. He's a hell of a get off the bench for Detroit.
Yeah, unique season for Dennis Schroeder, too. He played for 3 different teams this year.
Yeah.
Started on the Brooklyn Nets, was having career highs. They ultimately were trying to lose games, traded him to the Warriors. I believe he spent 23 games with the Nets, 24 games with the Warriors, and 28 games in Detroit this season. So kind of a bizarre year for him, but the dude can play, man. Like, he is exactly who he's been. And for this Pistons team specifically, the questions are not Cade Cunningham. It's, can the other guys beat them? And having kind of a relief valve in that offense like Schroeder, who is a competent ball handler, who can shoot the ball, can play make for others, just do the things that you need a guard to do, is a huge deal for this Pistons team. So he stepped up. That three-pointer he hit to put them up 3 was a huge bucket last night. He does have stones. He's willing to talk. He got into it with Josh Hart a little bit. He's a perfect match for this Pistons team, and he's going to be a huge part of this playoff run or this series, regardless of how long it goes.
Detroit first playoff win since 2008, 15 straight playoff losses by the Pistons. And that's a heck of a win. And I was texting you guys last night. I just was hopeful that they didn't blow that one. That just, because I was like, if they lose this one, I'm out. I am done. And that's what we want. You know, we want some really good first round series here to have our attention. And we got one between the Knicks and Pistons, something that you called. So here we are. The play that you loved the most was 5.5 games.
Yep, over that. So it would still need one more win from Detroit, or, you know, maybe New York to win one if it's 4-2 Detroit and the other way there. So need at least one more of this. Keep
that would be hysterical.
Yeah.
4-1 Pistons roll.
I mean, and by the way, like, for all the Madison Square Garden love playing at home, it's going to be walking into Detroit and playing a playoff game there. It is going to be rowdy in that arena. That I think that is going to grow into one of the better home courts in the NBA. That, like, I don't know if you've seen any games there this season. The crowd brings it. Detroit brings it. So I'm very excited to see what that looks like with the playoff atmosphere.
They did have to roll out the fact that they weren't selling tickets to out of state fans, though. So Knicks, for whatever it is, they do travel well. We'll give them credit, and they do love their team. So we'll see. But again, it's all tied up. It's a great series, has our attention right now. Game 3 Thursday night. We'll be live for it. We're going to have some fun with that streaming. Knicks are a point favorite, 214.5 Oh, yeah, a lot of tension on that one. And, of course, the NFL draft going down on Thursday night. Let's talk a little bit about Jalen Brunson here because he's getting a lot of attention right now.
Sure is.
It's funny because, Knicks fans are now defending their guy and he can't do anything wrong when clearly it's everybody is seeing it right now across the board. And it's so egregious. And I don't think that he's getting those calls. How many free throws? He shot 11 free throws last night. I thought the refs swallowed the whistle. It hit me a little bit, though, Sean, in the games 1 and 2. And we know that this is the case. The NBA playoffs, they tend to swallow the whistle a little more. I just think, why not do that in a regular season? It helps the game flow. It is so much easier to watch, enjoy. Just like, can we have a little bit less officiating throughout the course of the regular season as well?
Yeah, that would be nice. And like, by the way, when we get into these like critiques over the foul baiting or the style of play, in the end, that always to me falls on the shoulders of the referees. That if you stop rewarding that, guys will stop doing it. And we've clearly seen like how the habits have grown. Like everybody does it now. And my personal problem with the Jalen Brunson conversation is it feels like he's held to a different standard than guys like Joel Embiid, like James Harden, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who all do this. Yes, they tried to draw fouls. It is a high IQ basketball play, an efficient basketball play to work yourself and get to the free throw line. And that's why Jalen Brunson does it. So don't act like he doesn't. He is guilty of it. He is not the quote unquote ethical hooper, the way that continues to be talked about by Knicks fans. I've never made sense to me. And don't get me wrong, like it's fine to wear that, to be that guy, to intentionally get to the free throw line because that's what he does. But with last night specifically, I thought Asar Thompson did an awesome job beating Brunson to the spot on a lot of occasions. The play that Thompson fouled out on is the direct play that the NBA came down on saying they're taking out of the game. And with that play, Brunson got him on the pump fake at the three-point line. Thompson's was going to land a couple feet in front of Brunson. So Brunson takes a step forward into his jump shot path. So Thompson falls on him. That's not a basketball play. And that is the stuff that should be taken out of the game. And that was the sixth foul. And Brunson knew it because while he's laying on the floor, he's holding up 6 fingers to indicate that he just got this guy to foul out of the game. So if you want to talk what he's doing, he knows exactly what he's doing. It's still a referee conversation because these guys were rewarded. But yeah, Brunson is as guilty of that as anyone. And I think it's anyone who's acting like he doesn't do it is just trying to kind of, put this in a little bit of a Knicks lens right here.
I like that. No, you're right. And there was the one, I don't know if it was first half or early second half, but Thompson's running down the floor and Brunson has him and they reviewed it. It was such a bogus call. Again, it's playoff basketball. Swallow the whistle. There's no need for it, right? Like if there's a turnover, I get it, call it. But, everybody on my timeline, a lot of NBA fans are now like, all right, enough of this, Brunson. Like we enjoy watching you play. You don't need to do this, but I do believe you're spot on with your assessment when you talk about the fact that this is a referee conversation. He's being rewarded, and there's a reason why these guys do it. Look, Joel Embiid
does it.
He does it. There's no doubt about it. He does it. He also takes a beating, a heck of a lot different than what Brunson does and all those other guys, but still, he does it, and he gets rewarded, and he goes to the line a bunch, and he nails them from the free throw line. SGA, like you said, Harden's the one that comes to my mind. Harden changed. Yeah, he's the innovator, right? He changed the NBA with that. Man, we got to start looking at Harden a little bit differently. We start talking about players that actually changed the way we look at the NBA. AI, Steph. Yeah, Harden's got to be up there.
Oh, yeah. The three-pointers, the isolation, and the free throw draw. Like, he stylistically played a different brand of basketball than we'd really ever seen before when you look at that Houston Rockets era. When we're just talking, like, pure influence, James Harden is pretty near the top of the list for the impact that he's had on basketball there. And those Houston Rockets teams did have greater success than they sometimes get credit. Pushing a Golden State Warriors team with Kevin Durant to 7 games in a playoff series is not something to just brush off the shoulders there. I do think history will remember James Harden a lot more fondly than we probably do at this current time. And by the way, still playing very well for that Clippers team, which also won last night.
We're going to get into them in just a second. But yeah, Brunson stuff is really intriguing. And it's just funny because, again, you were early and right, as you pointed out. And it's the truth. Like you were calling this out all the way back to last year. And I know that we've seen this before with Brunson, but not to this level and the extreme that we're seeing it now. And he's being rewarded and he's going to the line a bunch, but he's flopping even when he doesn't get fouled. He's getting to, like, it seems like he's constantly on the ground begging for a call. And as you said, the fact that he knows how many fouls that Thompson has, like, I don't know. I think there's a line. Play your game. Let's ball out. It's playoffs. all that other stuff could be regular season-esque. Right now, let's go. It's man versus man. And Brunson kind of coming up a little soft at this point in time. Albeit, though, he did drop 37.
Yeah, no, and he still didn't play bad from the actual
No.
basketball conversation. I would like if he played more just basketball rather than this foul baiting game here. And I did love Malik Beasley last night, who's certainly a tone setter for this Pistons team. He did foul Brunson on one on kind of like an arm checking. Brunson was coming off a screen trying to get free. Beasley sort of clamped onto him. They called a foul. Beasley turns right to the referee and just goes, playoff basketball, playoff basketball, playoff basketball. Repeats it 6 times right to his face, which I love the message there. Let these guys play. Let these guys figure it out on their skill set, not who shoot more free throws or have a game. So the referees will have a pretty significant impact on how this series is played moving forward, but let the boys play would be my message there.
Damn right. All right. Anything else from last night's game that you want to put out there? And again, so we understand where we're at. If the Knicks do come up short, Tibbs is 100% out. They'll be trying to find a new head coach. Is there a coach that you think could get the most out of this New York Knicks squad? Because they do have talent. They spent a boatload of picks to go ahead and get both of their players with Cat and Bridges. You know, it's not to say that they're the perfect team, but it's a pretty good squad. And I would imagine that's a good job to have, right? Madison Square Garden, the Knicks, the fans, they love it. Team just won 50-plus games. Is there a coach that potentially is out there right now do you think could be somebody that they have their eye on?
Yeah, I don't have a specific name off the top of my head here, but I would like for them to lean more on kind of like an offensive minded guy. That I do think I've been a Tom Thibodeau guy. I still like him as a coach and think like he deserves a lot of credit for helping to turn this franchise around as he's done at a couple different stops now. But I don't know if he's the guy that can like maximize the skill sets of guys in the way that they need. I do think Karl Anthony Towns could be a more effective player than what he proved this year, and that is a coaching thing. Mikal Bridges wasn't unlocked in the offense to the level that should be the case when you traded 5 first-round picks to get a guy here. That it's certainly very reliant around Jalen Brunson, and I understand he is the sun that everything rotates around in New York from their basketball perspective there, but you got to find a way to unlock these other guys a little deeper there. So I do think there's fair complaints about Thibodeau as far as how the coaching, the offense overall looks here. Will be interesting if they go that direction. And if there are the injuries that pop up towards the tail end of the season, which tends to happen because he plays all these guys a million minutes here. Like, I think you have to correlate that in a way that you can't, if that happens, and I'm not wishing that or expecting that to be the case yet, it just has been a theme in the Knicks and the Thibodeau era here. You got to look at the correlation if that is the case too.
Pistons plus 205 at the money line. They cash in. Congratulations. Nice work if you did take Detroit in game 2 at MSG. Now to game 3 on Thursday night. We'll talk about that one a heck of a lot more tomorrow. And of course on Thursday as well. There was a second game that took place last night, and it was a pretty darn good one as well. Backs against the wall for the LA Clippers. A lot of expectations. I knew it was going to be tough going into Detroit. They were winning by a bunch though. They should have won that game. I knew it was going to be tough to go into Denver and win that game. But all in all, I do have the Clippers. I still think the Clippers are going to win this series. Great victory last night, led by Kawhi. But with Kawhi's 39 points, the question that has to be asked right now is, if Kawhi doesn't produce that type of result, are the Clippers in trouble? Do you see the Nuggets advancing? First of all, your take on last night's game.
Yeah, I think Kawhi Leonard has to be the front and center take. That beyond just the 39 points, which speaks for itself, and the efficiency that he did it with, 15 of 19 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3. Felt like he hardly hit the rim last night. And his movement, man, like
that's what he does.
This looks like the Kawhi Leonard, the 2018-19 Kawhi Leonard that we've seen carry a franchise through the playoffs and win an NBA championship. The 2-time Finals MVP Kawhi Leonard. That is the way that he's moving out there. So it is always that hold your breath a little bit when having these conversations, as we know the injury track record, but this is the vision. This is why the Clippers were so tactical and so strategic in building up his minutes and preparing him to be ready for the playoffs, playing just 37 regular season games. For all the slack that load management gets and, you know, the injuries that these guys battle, this is why you do it. So you can have one playoff run with a guy of this caliber. I do think in the Kawhi Leonard conversation, if you were to redo his career and turn injuries off, we would probably be having some pretty scary conversations about how this guy stacks up in the all-time great conversation. He is that caliber of talent. It has been robbed due to injuries, but he looks like he is fully there. And I think this type of performance is here to stay as long as his body allows it.
Yeah, and you know, I know a lot of people are out there wondering if this is something that Joel Embiid can go off, and you never know. Anything that helps you sleep at night, whatever. But Kawhi is Yeah, you're right. Kawhi is, and the funny thing that you brought up that he doesn't hit the rim, it's the truth. That's just Kawhi, man.
Yeah.
Just it's why we all were fearful of him getting that final shot up there in Toronto in that game 7 spot, because if Kawhi's putting it up, most of the time it's going to go into the rim. And last night he didn't miss at all, really. It was on fire, and it's what was needed. Again, 105-102 was your final score. It was a point spread into the game. Denver was favored in this one, and Kawhi Leonard had 20 at the half, finished with 39. He was 15-19, just an animal of a ball game. But as we've been discussing, Harden, he plays well. He filled his role in the first 2 games. Powell played well. Zubac on defense. But I want to bring it back as far as where should we be focusing, because Denver's getting a lot of production from the players that they needed. But if the Clippers don't get 39, 35 points from Kawhi, I think he stayed under the 25-point mark in game 1. Are they in trouble moving forward?
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I think James Harden has another level that he can play to. He played well in the first game, but he really kind of exploded early. He had 15 points in that first quarter and sort of cruised a little bit from there. Last night he was held to 18 points. There will be at least one Harden like full heater game that he can kind of carry you to from an offensive perspective. I think defensively is where the Clippers are really kind of imposing themselves. I've said it coming into the series, but I think Ivica Zubac specifically is a guy that is the most difficult playoff matchup from an individual standpoint that Jokic has ever seen in a playoff setting here. That he is real deal 7 foot with a 7'4" wingspan that is capable of moving out to the perimeter a little bit. I did and wrote about this for DraftKings Network yesterday. The Nikola Jokic 3-point props is something I would keep an eye on for this series moving forward. Last night he shot 4 of 6 from beyond the arc. That's kind of the counter that I see him leaning into, with Jokic having a little bit of trouble with Zubac on the interior. And don't get me wrong, he's still Nikola Jokic. He's still going to impose himself, get his numbers, and make his impact. But that's an area where I do think there's a little bit of value. I still kind of like just the Clippers' other guys more than I like the Nuggets' other guys. That I did like the response from Michael Porter Jr. Jamal Murray played well, but when looking outside of their core stars, I think the Clippers have more guys that they can tap into when you start getting into the Chris Dunns, the Nico Batums, the Derek Jones Jr. Bogdanovich, I thought played really well last night. Even though he went scoreless, I thought his impact was there. So I like this Clippers team. I think they needed to even it 1-1. I saw Nikola Jokic with the quote that if you like basketball, this is the best series to watch. I do kind of agree with him there, that I think this is going to be an excellent series that does go 7. So I'm not worried about this Clippers team yet.
Good. Well, I'm all about that series, but I do believe that we have some really good series across the board in the NBA playoffs, and that's where I'm focused at. We got some really good series. Put the games to the side. The Clipper or the Lakers and Minnesota is going to be a great series.
Yeah.
The Knicks and Pistons, great series, 1-1. That Clippers and Denver game, great series. Yeah, we got some really good series to be paying attention in the first round of the NBA playoffs. So I'm with you on that one, Joker. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the numbers that matter the most for us here. First of all, that series right now, that was minus 110 both ways, wasn't it, going in?
That was, yeah. It started, I believe it opened at minus 160 in favor of the Clippers and slid down to a pick 'em by the end of it.
Well, Clippers are back up to minus 165 now with the next 2 games at home. Of course, series tied at 1 apiece. Denver plus 140. Going over the numbers here as far as the games are concerned. Back at it Thursday night, Clippers at home, 5-point favorites, 215. So any one of those games on Thursday night you have your eye on from the Knicks and Pistons, Nuggets and Clippers?
I mean, both, to be honest. I think they're both going to be excellent games there. I do like Detroit getting the victory in front of the home crowd. As I mentioned, I think we're going to have some takeaways after the fact of that fan base was starved for this. They brought it. The energy in that building was unbelievable. I think that's going to be kind of a wake up call, and these guys do get fired up for it. And also, we'll note, I forgot to mention with the Pistons, no Isaiah Stewart last night, which is sort of a big deal from a guy that is a tone setter. They got the victory without him, and I'm pretty optimistic that he does return for game 3. It is the playoffs, and he's the type of guy that's going to play through whatever he can. It is kind of concerning. We don't have an injury label, just right knee inflammation, and I know he went through CAT scans, MRIs, all that, so it seems like there could be something serious there, but at least that's worth noting. A little bit more split on how the Clippers and Nuggets go. I probably lean towards the home team in both games there, but feel more passionately about Detroit getting the win.
All right, let's talk about tonight's games. First one up, we got the Bucks and Pacers. That game goes off at 7:10. Of course, Pacers routed in Milwaukee, but a little bit of a difference. Hopefully, we can expect in game 2 for tonight. We'll see. Grizzlies and OKC. That was a
Oof.
demolishing as well. Yeah, OKC just wiped the floor with Memphis. I'm not so sure we're going to see something different in game 2 tonight. We'll talk about that one. And then at 10 o'clock, Lakers looked a little tired, weren't ready for the physicality of Minnesota. Minnesota playing up the fact that nobody has them winning this series, had them winning in that first game, all of that, and that amounted to an ugly game as well. One that LeBron was held to 19 points, if I'm not mistaken. Just looked lethargic out there. I would imagine that we're going to see a little bit more from LeBron and the Lakers tonight, but they're 6-point favorites. So do with that what you will. We'll talk about that one last here. Let's open up with the Bucks and Pacers. Excuse me, Sean. DraftKings right now showing Pacers 4-point favorites, 229. From the game 1 flow, what do you expect that we'll see a difference in game 2 tonight, if anything?
Yeah, biggest story is certainly Damian Lillard and whether or not he will be available. He has been upgraded to questionable, but it does feel like a pretty legitimate questionable, not just kind of one of these. He's in. We're just kind of keeping a label there. So that's something to watch leading up to this. Listen to Doc Rivers quotes about it and didn't love his outlook on Dame. He just kind of didn't feel as this dude's definitely playing as I would like to hear. That's definitely a difference maker for this Bucks team, whether or not you have Damian Lillard on the floor and their entire offense changes when you have a player of his caliber, a guy that can space the floor, that he can play off Giannis. So that's certainly the biggest storyline. If Lillard is able to return to the floor, I do think that this Bucks team, probably, I'm not going to go as far as comes back and wins the series, but certainly makes I don't think they have a chance if Dame does not return to the series or if the blood clot issues continue. He's been cleared. He's doing basketball activities, but it's so hard to gauge on something like that. I know I've said this before, but this isn't a sprained ankle. This isn't a sore knee. This is something that you have to fully adhere to what the doctors are saying. So that's probably the biggest storyline here. But I think the Bucks are going to play better in general. I think they probably win tonight regardless.
Yeah, I don't know. You got the Bucks winning tonight.
I do. I think they even it up. Giannis is still, I don't think he played it overly impressed in game 1. The numbers don't look bad, but I thought his impact wasn't quite there defensively. I didn't think he imposed himself in the way that we typically see the case there. And Tyrese Halliburton was feeling himself, man. It's a scary thought when he is feeling himself. Pascal Siakam, I thought, did his thing as well. I think this is going to be a series that when we fast forward a week or two, that we kind of have up there in one of the more fun series across the NBA. So I think that Milwaukee has it in them to make this competitive.
Who else is going to produce, though, besides Giannis for that team? That's where it starts and ends without Dame in there, right? If Dame doesn't go tonight, because it was originally put out there before game 1 that he is, and even in following game 1, because when he picked up the technical, big thought process is he's going to be back for game 2. I think he was saying that he'll be back out there for game 2, but then immediately following that game is he was expected to miss more than one game. So if that's the case, he's not going to go tonight. Who else is producing for Milwaukee if it's not Giannis and they don't have Dame to look to?
To start with, you cannot get a Tony Snell stat line from Kyle Kuzma again. That just cannot happen. Who not only put up 0 points, 0 assists, and 0 rebounds across his 22 minutes of action, but also got to the free throw line and missed both those to make sure he kept that stat line intact. So
minus 24.
Yeah, minus 24 in that game. That cannot happen. That's an issue. Kuzma's been a brutal watch pretty much since he got to Milwaukee. There was a brief stretch where he got there where I saw the vision, saw it working well, but that is certainly something that I think needs to change. Taurean Prince also had 0 points in the starting lineup for Milwaukee there. Brook Lopez, the age is showing on him. So there are concerns about the other guys. I think you got to lean into the youth, go off the bench a little bit. AJ Green, I do think, is a guy who can get red hot. He shot 5 of 11 from 3 in game 1. Gary Trent Jr. can bring it. Pat Connaughton, Kevin Porter Jr. I don't love, but I think that's at least there's something there in a way that I don't fully see with Kyle Kuzma. So it's sort of going to be on Doc Rivers to mix things up a little bit. I didn't like what he did with the starting lineup, having guys like Ryan Rollins, Taurean Prince. I would like to see a statement from Doc Rivers tonight of, I'm rocking the boat, I'm changing things up, and I'm giving the young guys a chance. That hasn't been the biggest track record of Doc Rivers doing that, but that would be what, if I was in his shoes, the move tonight.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to go with the home team in this one. I think there's a little bit too much fight with the Indiana Pacers here. It's a good team. They're still at home. They believe they were able to turn it around after a sluggish start to the season, plus off of what they did last year. I'm going to ride with the Pacers here to make this a 2-0 series lead. We'll see what happens there, though. 4-point spread. Dame, if you had to guess, does he play?
I think so. But again, I have such a hard time with like the blood clot issue specifically. It's like
Yeah.
whatever you read, like you can read some stuff that it's like his life is on the line. He may never play basketball again and like his life may be shortened. And then there's other stuff that it's like he's on meds, he's good to continue life as usual. So whatever the doctor said is certainly what they should adhere to. But my gut says he is probably out there based on the way that he talked with Halliburton in game 1.
Is that baked into the line? Because there was a 6-point spread in game 1. Indiana never trailed. They were up by 30 at half, I think. And now they're only 4-point favorites. So are the odds makers expecting Dame to play tonight?
I would have to imagine so. I mean, he is upgraded to questionable, and the track record is questionable guys do tend to play more often than not there. And like he was obviously ruled out for game 1 pretty well in advance. So the fact that that door is open, I think, is a little bit telling there. But I need to directly hear that before I'm fully buying in that yes, he will be on the floor tonight.
Minus 192 on the money line. So that kind of comes back on the other side that I'm looking at Indiana. Yeah, that's a tough play. Yeah, it's a tough one. Good luck. I think, you should hold out until we find out what's the latest with Dame. Yeah. All right, let's keep it moving. 7:30 p.m. We got the Grizzlies OKC 14.5-point spread. I think that's where we need to focus here because I don't believe either one of us are going to sit here and say that Memphis has a chance of winning this game.
No.
14.5-point spread. No, it wasn't too many last time. Of course, they did play the play-in. They did play both games. They had a game, the 2 nights before. Like, it's just OKC. And my favorite thing was to fire up the timeline the next morning and go. And you saw somebody from ESPN say, well, if they play like this, they're not going to lose the game. Oklahoma City's been playing like this all year. They're that good. They are that good. It shouldn't surprise that they absolutely wiped the floor with the Grizzlies. Can the Grizzlies do anything different, though, in game 2 to keep this close?
I mean, it was a bad game by the Grizzlies, no doubt about it. But I think like the score is a little bit more indicative of the gap in talent than anything that they specifically did. I like the minus 14.5 tonight. Again, I do think Oklahoma City blows this game out pretty early. The fact of the matter is we can talk all we want about coaching, the coaching change, John Morant, the antics. The root of the issue here, the Grizzlies' big 3 is not good enough. They don't have a top 15 NBA player. John Morant has not been that for a couple years now. Desmond Bane, not quite good enough as like a co-star there. And Jaren Jackson Jr. is a pretty flawed basketball player as well. Those are your 3 best players. Jackson Jr.'s like failure to rebound is really frustrating to me. And that's on full display when you're going up against Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein, as in the case in this series. So the Thunder are just straight up better by just about every single metric you want to look at on both sides of the floor. The 3-point line, the mid-range, around the rim, defensively, you go down the list and the Thunder check every single box. The Grizzlies are going to have some uncomfortable conversations this offseason, but before they get there, I do think it is a couple more spankings from this Thunder team to close down the year.
Yeah, on Sunday, you had 3 huge spreads, all double digits and all favorites covered. And, of course, OKC led the charge, winning 131-80. And if you were trying to do the math on that one, as 13-point favorites, they covered by 38 points. I don't expect to see anything different tonight. I think this is just a tough spot for the Grizzlies, and exactly what you said. We won't waste too much time on it.
And SGA played bad in game 1, by the way.
It's just like, yeah. Again, I think the Grizzlies were very content and happy making where they did. And then, oh, by the way, now welcome to the NBA playoffs, and you're not the only one. You know, you're seeing it with the Orlando Magic and the Boston Celtics, right? Even with the Heat and Cavs, like it's just good luck. These teams have been that good all season long, and I think that when we see those big numbers, we know this, that a lot of people that are going to be wagering on the NBA playoffs for the first time, like, oh man, it's the NBA playoffs. Every game's going to be tight. Every team has a run in the second half, 13 points too much to lay. No, don't think like that, especially in this round. In this round. All right, let's go. Third and final game. Really interested to hear your thoughts on this one. Of course, Lakers and T-Wolves. I asked the question yesterday from the first game ones when everybody played, like who was the superstar that shined the most? My answer was Tobias Harrison campaign. And then who was the superstar that wasn't ready to go in game 1? And for me, it was LeBron. And it just felt like that was the whole Laker team vibe as a whole. Now, I do want to give Minnesota a ton of credit. They have some really good players. Ant's awesome. And he's got that motivational factor behind him where it's like, oh, you ain't going to believe in me? Watch this. And I think they all bought in, but you're going to get a much different game from the Lakers, specifically LeBron. Is that going to be enough in your mind? They're 6-point favorites. Where you at this one?
Yeah, it's interesting that, like, I think I kind of went into the series with the mindset that because of, we know sort of the outlook for the Lakers, they are as battle tested, they have all these, that there would be sort of this like pressing feeling of we need to limit as many games as possible, win every single game we can, keep the shortest path possible because of the injuries that this team's battling, the age that they have. I kind of think I overlooked like the toll that it took just to get to this point, that the entire second half of the season since Luka Doncic came to Los Angeles, it has been, I'm not going to say must-win basketball every single night, but there's been some important games that they've had to get up for and battle, earn their way out of the play-in tournament, and make sure that they kind of set themselves up for this type of matchup. And obviously, the Timberwolves felt the disrespect of not seemingly giving a chance here. It felt like way too much Luka ball to me, to be honest with you, in game one. That I think that was sort of the issue I had with this Lakers team. Was a lot of guys standing around and watching. And if you want to be an anti-Luka Doncic guy, which there's not a lot of them running around this year, but only one of them tends to be running the Dallas Mavericks organization. But if you are an anti-Luka guy, that is the complaint there, that there is not as much involvement with teammates. Same conversation back to the prime James Harden, that you have to have a very special group of guys around him for things to operate correctly. I don't think the Lakers are fully there yet from a roster standpoint, but it's still Luka Doncic and LeBron James. So I'm not panicking after game one. I do think the Timberwolves played well and deserve credit for that. Anthony Edwards was fine. I'll give a little bit of love to Rudy Gobert, who I do think is a punching bag whenever things are going bad. It never really gets the praise when he does play well. Thought he played well in game one and held his own. Really limited. I mean, sent Jackson Hayes out of that game in 8 minutes there. So, and by the way, the number is not there for Gobert whatsoever, but defensively, I thought he was pretty impressive in that game. So I still think the Lakers win the series. I think they come back and win tonight, but it certainly was a performance that has a bit more of a concern, like a takeaway that is concerning to me than just something I'm brushing away.
Is this the series tonight?
Is this what?
Is this the series? Can they go down 0-2 and win this series?
Yeah, I still think they can.
Wow.
I'm not ruling it out after what happens tonight. Certainly not how you want to start here, and particularly when you already had the home crowd or had home crowd advantage. Now that you did drop game one there, but I don't think it is over if the Lakers do lose tonight.
Man, this is really a good number. I would be like, if you made me put my house on the line, I don't know if I'm giving 6. But then you got to fall back into your vision when it comes to wagering on these games. And it's like, can Minnesota win this game? They just won game one. I just don't know if Lakers are going to let game two slide. Like Luka, LeBron, this is all hell right now. But Minnesota's got a better roster to a point. It's still LeBron and Luka. So yeah. It's hard to sit there and say, but top to bottom, they have a better roster, right? Bench.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like,
how about positions? How about positions? Height? You know, you got Randall down there. He's playing. He played, 20 minutes in that game.
Yeah, and Naz Reid, by the way, popping off for 23 points off the bench. Like, that is a guy. I thought defensively, like the Lakers were pretty all over the place from start to finish. And we're through the honeymoon period where briefly after the trade, they were putting out these ridiculous defensive metrics. They're not a good defensive team. They're going to have to kind of outscore teams and lead the charge with their offense. We know that to be the case when it is a Luka Doncic-led team. Like, for all the noise that has surrounded this, like, Dallas Mavericks saga, and Nico Harrison continues to make things worse every time he opens his mouth. I'm not defending this decision. It still was incredibly stupid, but I do like, if that is the theory he subscribes to, I can get where you got there with the defense is not good enough. Now, again, I think it's incredibly dumb decision to have traded them. But with that all said, that Dallas did an excellent job putting the guys around Luka to make sure that you could kind of build that. The Daniel Gaffords, the PJ Washingtons, the Derek Lively's. The Lakers haven't really had a chance to do that yet. They tried to trade for Mark Williams at the trade deadline. Medical issues popped up there. That a guy like Jackson Hayes is not quite good enough as what you need as a big man. Played just 8 minutes in this game. So there's issues with this Lakers roster. There's no doubt about it here. I do think if you want to go top to bottom, you can make the case that Minnesota has the better overall roster, but it's still LeBron James and Luka Doncic. So I'm not going to get too ahead of myself before I'm counting them out yet.
Yeah, and then it just flips, right, with Minnesota, because I wanted to give them all the credit in the world. No one picked them, no one backed them, so on and so forth. But Minnesota has that vibe where it's like they got game one. I hate to say it like this, but it's almost like mission accomplished. I could see them thinking like that. Like, hey, we came in, we took 1 of 2, we did what we needed to do. We stole home court. We'll go back to Minnesota. I just don't know if they have that necessary grit and that determination that, yo, we ain't losing tonight. Like, no way. So I probably would give the 6 with the Lakers, even though that's just one too many for my liking. But I think I'm back in the Lake show here. Where are you at in this one? Lakers?
Yeah, and for what it's worth, this is still a Timberwolves team that went to the conference finals last year.
Yeah.
And like they have some playoff pedigree. A guy like Anthony Edwards, I don't think is going to back down or roll over like that. So I still lean towards the minus 6 in favor of the Lakers. I do think they even things up tonight. But this Timberwolves team certainly like is a team that fits the criteria of like should have the chip on their shoulder, should be hearing the noise of the lack of belief in them because they've been pretty good all season. They really have.
All right. Quickly on this one, your favorite play tonight?
Favorite play tonight, it would be the Thunder minus 14.5.
Is there a player that you know that you're certain is going to go off and therefore cash in his player prop?
Let me see. I'll scroll through the list right now. The Thunder is hard because of the minutes is always a possible to get out of control now. I do kind of like Pascal Siakam over 20.5. I think he's been very good for this Pacers team. Sam Ostry will point out how he's been their best player on the larger bulk of the season, which I think is a fair take to have. And I do think like the Milwaukee had some issues defensively. That's going to be a problem with them. So that would probably be my favorite bet from player prop perspective. Pascal Siakam over 20.5 points.
All right, one quick thought on the Warriors and Rockets. The Warriors held it down in game 1. That game 2 is tomorrow night. Warriors are 2.5-point dogs. 204.5 is your total in that one. Your takeaway from game 1 in that game?
I think if you're Houston, like you have to be worried after game 1. That was a game script that went according to their game plan, that they were able to impose themselves defensively, keep it a low scoring battle, and Golden State still found a way to win it. That the Warriors are far more equipped to win games in a defensive minded approach than the Rockets are to win in a shootout here. Jalen Green wasn't good enough. We know sort of the same issue. I think this is a huge night for Jalen Green. I think if he does not improve how he started the series, he's probably not in a Houston Rockets uniform next year. And like they're going to have to make some pretty tough decisions about that core moving forward. But I entered this series thinking this is going to be a battle back and forth. I kind of think the Warriors could skate pretty clean through this series.
Yeah, Warriors held it down in that second quarter, and that was where it all turned in that game. And then Houston held to 85 points. So, like, I just, good luck holding the Golden State Warriors to a rock fight, right? Like, I know it's happened before, understood, but in a playoff matchup, Steve Kerr, of course, Steph, and we know who else is there right now. Good luck with that mentality. All right, and then finally we get you out of here on this one, Nico Harrison. Got to take some advice every once in a while from Shaq and Charles Barkley. First of all, be careful what you eat after you turn 40. Second of all, Nico, not every microphone's a good microphone. Enough is enough. Like, no one wants to hear from you. You lost. There's nothing you can do, nothing you could say. And then he gets out there and says, like, I knew how important Luka was to this franchise. I didn't know how important. I really didn't know how important he was. And it's like, I'm paraphrasing here. It's like, dude, what? What?
Yeah.
More and more. It just makes you wonder, like, what exactly is going on in this dude's head?
Yeah, no, you're right. Like it's gotten worse and worse, which is the starting place is already brutal when you're talking about trading Luka Doncic, like a 25-year-old 5-time All-NBA, a guy who's on the pathway to having one of the more accomplished NBA careers of any player in history. And you said, yeah, I don't want to be a part of that. Now, like we're starting to see more and more leak out. Where I think like the biggest root of all this went wrong is, for starters, he didn't handle himself well after the trade deadline, that he did not do the business standard of how a general manager handles himself. And the defense that he'll put out there is that he did have a press conference immediately after, but it was on the road because the team was in Cleveland. So it's not like the local media had access to him to ask these questions. So not what I would consider quite fair game there. And then he didn't have a press conference after he made the Quentin Grimes trade for Caleb Martin there, which is one that, just business standard is when a general manager makes that caliber of a decision after the trade deadline, there is media availability. So there was not then. And then there's been sort of this lingering unhappiness about this from just about all the Dallas Mavericks. And obviously so, because Luka Doncic has been traded and we're seeing the reaction there. So then he holds this like closed doors meeting last week where there's no cameras allowed, no recording devices allowed, which is another thing that I've just never even heard of in like a sports media sense. I don't think that's ever even been done before. And it was very strategically like avoiding some media faces here, that it was handpicked who was invited. It was not held at the Mavericks facility. It was at a a conference center like down the street there. Again, intentional, happening during Mavericks practice. So like trying to control the narrative as much as he can. And then it was his normal press conference at the end of season 1 yesterday. Pretty much everything he said has made me feel worse. Everything that I'm reading, and there's an awesome Tim McMahon article that came out last night, sort of how this really dates back to 18 months ago where this started deteriorating, where they sort of rid Luka's guys from the franchise and a lot going from behind the scenes. And Luka himself had said that. Like, he jokingly said at a press conference last year, everyone that I like, they end up getting rid of. And like, that says a lot. So I think the pieces are starting to fully put together from the puzzle, but it all comes back to Nico Harrison really trying to directly take control of this Mavericks organization in a way that I think all fans should be frustrated with, not just Dallas in particular. So he's got to stop talking. I hope we don't hear from him from several months for his own good at this point, but nothing he can say can make it seem better or change the decision. You just traded Luka Doncic to get an older, aging star with more availability concerns, shorten your window, and turned over some draft picks in the process there. So I just don't think it's ever going to be defensible.
Not much I can add on that one. Totally agree across the board. Nico, I get it. If you don't win an NBA championship, you don't get back to an NBA finals, you don't move in the playoffs, your seat gets hot, and maybe he would have been fired next year. We know how this business is. But to do what he did and dismantle that franchise, and to the point that what Dirk is saying, Dirk's distanced himself from it. Like, you got Dallas Maverick fans that were pretty much diehards for your franchise, just embarrassed to even wear your logo right now. It's bad. It's bad. So
it's sad to me too.
Did not see down the road on this one, clearly.
Yeah, and it's sad to me too, because the Mavericks are an organization that, like, I personally have always viewed my entire life as like an organization that does things right. Like, they stand by their guys. Mark Cuban has run it like a fan perspective, which I give him a ton of credit for. And obviously he's not there anymore, and that's certainly correlated to a lot of these conversations. But like, they had this decades-long track record of really going about their business the right way. And it's all off probably forever at this point from one specific guy. And for Nico Harrison specifically here, like, he's very clearly viewing this as like, I'm only here for 3 or 4 more years, and I want to win in that. I'm going to do whatever possible. Like, that's not the healthiest outlook. Like, he was even directly asked in this press conference, like, do you think you'll be here after, or do you, I think the question was phrased, do you expect to see the end of Anthony Davis's tenure in Dallas? And his reply was, I'm under contract until 2027. Like, that's just not great right there.
No.
And the thing that, like, regardless of how distant we get from this, it will always be indefensible to me that if you'd come to the conclusion we're out on the Luka Doncic business, we don't want to hitch our wagon to this guy for the remainder of his career, you got to get open bidding here. You could have gotten the largest trade return in legitimate NBA history. When we're talking about 5 first-round picks being traded from Mikal Bridges and what Rudy Gobert got on the open market, the fact that you handpicked, I just want Anthony Davis and I'm trading Luka Doncic to get him, that's just bad practice no matter how you cut it. So you did not maximize value. You put your organization in a worse spot, and now they got to live with the repercussions of that.
All right. Great job across the board. And oh, by the way, for those that weren't keeping track at home, Cooper Flagg, he is going to the NBA draft.
I had a full argument with a Duke friend of mine that was certain he was coming back next year. I can't believe there were people that actually believed that there was a chance that he would come back for a second season.
I don't think there was. There wasn't anybody out there that believed it. There was one guy. You found the one guy. You found the one guy.
There shouldn't have been. Like, I feel like this happens every year, by the way, when there's like a Zion or something like that. It's like, oh, what if they come back and do that? And it's like, the goal is to get to the NBA and be the number 1 overall pick. You accomplished it. Like, go reap the benefits now.
The NIL is different. Like, I don't know. Like, if you're telling me he can get $25 million and be back at Duke and not have to go to classes, I don't know. Maybe, because it's a different day with that. But like, it's overall number 1 pick, your legacy, everything you've worked to get to that point. Like, he's so young. If he was making more money at Duke and it was a decent sum, which we're not there, then maybe that's a conversation 10 years down the road. But if we have college kids making $50 million, we got issues. I think we got bigger problems there. I don't know.
And you also kind of want to start that timeline where you can start being a $50 million per year guy, which he will be. He will be in the NBA. So, like, you got to get through your rookie contract before you're cashing in that one. He's going to get there. So Cooper Flagg, right call. Don't overthink it. You accomplished your goal. Very successful freshman season at Duke. Are the certified number 1 pick, and I hope he's coming to Philadelphia.
Yes. We'll see what happens.
May 12th.
All right. Yeah, May 12th. Yeehaw. I hear there's a party going on. We're back to those parties. Awesome.
That's right.
All right. Sean Barnard, great job as always. Continue to follow you on all things socials. And nobody does a better job covering the NBA. Be sure to get all of his content over at DraftKings Network. That's DKNetwork.com. Fantastic stuff. Keep it locked right here to The Gambler. And once again, we'll be live throughout the course of the week talking all things NBA playoffs until we crown a champion in June. Good luck on those plays.